Okey, selamat petang. Selamat datang tuan-tuan dan puan-puan ke YouTube Live Sektor, Psikologi, Kaunseling, Pendidikan, Daerah, Baram. Salam sejahtera, selamat petang dan salam menjulang Pendidikan Negeri Sarawak. Yang berusaha Pegawai Pendidikan Daerah Baram, Encik Matiu Laingau. Yang berusaha Barisan Pegawai Pendidikan Daerah, Pejabat Pendidikan Daerah Zon Utara. Yang berusaha Cikgu Xiao Yen, Pengamal Pemulihan Psikiatri dari Masterpieces, penceramah jemputan kita pada hari ini. Yang dihormati rakan-rakan pegawai di Pejabat Pendidikan Daerah Zon Utara, Barisan Kaunselor Pendidikan Daerah, Barisan Pengetua dan Guru Besar, guru-guru, anggota kumpulan pelaksana dan semua hadirin yang bersama dalam ceramah kesihatan mental sempena Sambutan Bulan Psikologi dan Kaunseling tahun 2022. Anjuran bersama Sektor Psikologi dan Kaunseling PPD Zon Utara pada petang ini. Sekali lagi, selamat datang ke ceramah kesihatan mental dengan tajuk Cabaran Kesihatan Mental, Mengurus Stres dan Gejala serta Pencegahannya. Program ini dianjurkan khas untuk semua warga pendidikan bagi meningkatkan kesedaran mengenai kepentingan menjaga kesihatan mental sama seperti kesihatan fizikal. Sebagai makluman, tuan-puan, hadirin hadirat sekalian, perkongsian pada petang ini adalah untuk memberi pendidikan psikososial tentang pengurusan stres dalam mendepani isu dan cabaran dunia pendidikan masa kini. Seperti peribahasa, mencegah lebih baik daripada mengubati. Ceramah kita pada petang ini, kita mulakan dengan bacaan doa. Dengan itu, dipersilakan Ustaz Syarun bin Yahya, Kaunselor Pendidikan Daerah Miri untuk mengetuai bacaan doa. Dipersilakan.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Ya Allah ya Rahman Rahim, sesungguhnya kami berhimpun pada hari ini bagi merapatkan kesyukuran di atas kurniaan-Mu yang tidak ternilai. Jadikanlah kami hamba-hamba-Mu yang sentiasa bersyukur, sama ada nikmat yang sedikit, lebih-lebih lagi nikmat yang melimpah ruah kepada kami. Ya Allah ya Rahman Rahim, sesungguhnya Engkau Maha mengetahui bahawa kami di sini ingin menimba ilmu-Mu yang sangat luas bagi mengembangkan potensi kami sebagai hamba-Mu yang Engkau redai. Justru berkati dan rahmatilah perhimpunan kami ini. Gunakanlah kepada kami apa kiranya ilmu-Mu. Sinarilah hati-hati kami dengan cahaya dan hidayah-Mu. Semoga dengannya kami mudah menerima dan menghayati serta mengamalkannya. Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram, gunakanlah apa kiranya kepada kami kesihatan anggota, kecerdasan minda, ketenangan jiwa, kekuatan semangat. Semoga dengannya kami mampu mendepani cabaran, berdaya saing dan mampu mengangkat martabat diri, keluarga, masyarakat dan negara. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wasallam. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Ustaz Syarun atas pimpinan doa sebentar tadi. Sebelum kita meneruskan program pada petang ini, majlis ingin menjemput yang berusaha Tuan Pegawai Pendidikan Daerah Baram, Encik Matiu Laingau untuk menyampaikan kata-kata aluan beliau. Dipersilakan.
Terima kasih Cikgu Solina, penolong pegawai pendidikan daerah daripada sektor pembelajaran. Salam sejahtera, salam menjulang pendidikan negeri Sarawak. Salam memperkasakan transformasi pendidikan di daerah Baram. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang berusaha mungkin bersama dengan kita di dalam talian ataupun di dalam online live pada hari ini adalah rakan-rakan pegawai pendidikan daerah daripada Zon Utara. Yang saya kasihi semua kaunselor-kaunselor pendidikan daerah, para pengetua, para guru besar yang mungkin bersama dengan kita, barisan para guru, secara khususnya warga pendidik di dalam daerah kita, barisan anggota kumpulan-kumpulan pelaksana, dan sudah semestinya tuan-tuan yang tidak kita lupakan, yang kita alu-alukan pada petang ini itu penceramah jemputan kita, iaitu Cik Goh Seo Yen, yang merupakan salah seorang pengamal pemulihan psikiatri dari Masterpiece Miri. Terlebih dulu saya ingin mengucapkan berbanyak terima kasih dan tahniah atas penganjuran program ini bersama dengan Sektor Psikologi dan Kaunseling Zon Utara sebagai tanda sokongan dan pendidikan psikososial kesihatan mental kepada semua warga pendidikan sempena Bulan Psikologi dan Kaunseling peringkat negeri Sarawak pada bulan Oktober ini. Saya difahamkan tuan-tuan dan puan bahawa semua kaunselor sedang bergiat aktif melaksanakan aktiviti di peringkat daerah masing-masing ataupun di peringkat zon masing-masing. Tuan-tuan dan puan yang budiman, seperti mana kata pepatah yang sering kali kita dengar, mencegah lebih baik daripada mengubati. Saya percaya peribahasa ini sengaja dipilih oleh pihak penganjur kerana fokus utama perkongsian pada petang ini adalah lebih kepada pengetahuan dan hikmat nasihat kepada warga pendidikan mengenai pencegahan serta pengurusan stres yang betul. Sudah semestinya tuan-tuan topik ini akan membantu membugarkan kembali betapa pentingnya pengurusan tekanan emosi dengan cara yang betul sebagai langkah pencegahan awal kepada gangguan penyakit mental. Dengan adanya pendekatan psikologi seumpama ini, saya percaya ia dapat membantu kita memantapkan lagi pengetahuan tentang pencegahan dan pengesanan awal apa yang dikatakan sebagai penyakit mental. Rakan-rakan warga pendidik, tuan-tuan dan puan yang saya hormati sekalian, sudah semestinya dan kita sedia maklum, selain daripada menjaga kesihatan fizikal, kesihatan mental juga sama pentingnya. Jangan kita abaikan kesihatan mental kita, kerana ia adalah pusat ataupun center kepada kesihatan. Mental sakit, fizikal juga akan turut sakit. Isu dan cabaran kehidupan dunia sekarang sangat rencam, maka adalah wajar agar semua warga pendidik memiliki pengetahuan, ilmu dalam mendepani tekanan disebabkan oleh cabaran yang kita sedia maklum sekarang ini dalam keadaan yang penuh mencabar, dalam keadaan dunia yang menuju ke arah modernisasi. Jadi tuan-tuan dan puan, saya berharap perkhidmatan psikologi ayuh dalam pengurusan modal insan terus diperkasakan. Sama ada di peringkat zon kita ataupun di mana-mana saja bagi memastikan keseimbangan fizikal, emosi, tingkah laku maupun spiritual warga pendidik di daerah masing-masing berada pada tahap yang terbaik. Mari tuan-tuan dan puan warga pendidikan sekalian, kita ambil perkara ini dengan serius supaya kita senantiasa dapat menghasilkan dan menerjemahkan tugas dengan cara yang lebih baik lagi. Sebab apabila, dan saya percaya, apabila mental kita dalam keadaan yang sehat, maka kita akan dapat memacu dunia pendidikan ke tahap yang paling tinggi lagi. Ini sesuai dan selari dengan hasrat KPM untuk menghasilkan kemenjadian murid yang tinggi maupun kualiti sekolah yang diharap-harapkan. Warga pendidik sekalian, akhir kata daripada saya, marilah kita sama-sama dengan penuh bersemangat mendengar ceramah yang akan disampaikan, menghayati secara bersama apa yang penceramah kita akan sampaikan. Dapatkan sebanyak mana ilmu dan aplikasikannya di dalam kehidupan kita masing-masing. Sama-samalah kita memelihara kesejahteraan diri kita agar kita terus berfungsi dengan baik demi menunaikan tanggungjawab dan amanah yang telah diberikan kepada kita. Selari dengan slogan kita yang senantiasa kita laksanakan, memberi yang terbaik, mari kita memberi yang terbaik juga untuk tubuh dan badan kita, memberi yang terbaik untuk mental kita, supaya kita tetap ceria dan melaksanakan tugas dengan penuh jayanya. Tuan-tuan dan puan yang saya hormati sekalian, saya tidak berhasrat untuk bercakap dengan panjang lebar. Mari kita tumpukan perhatian kita mendengar apa yang akan disampaikan oleh penceramah kita pada hari ini, untuk memastikan kita meningkatkan lagi ilmu pengetahuan kita apa yang dimaksudkan dengan pengurusan stres ataupun bagaimana kita mencapai minda ataupun mental yang sihat. Sekian, terima kasih. Sama-sama kita mengikuti bengkel ini dengan penuh bersemangat dan penuh tumpuan. Terima kasih semua.
Terima kasih Tuan PPD atas ucapan yang telah disampaikan sebentar tadi. Tuan-puan yang dihormati sekalian, sebelum saya menjemput penceramah jemputan untuk menyampaikan ceramah beliau, izinkan saya membaca secara ringkas latar belakang beliau. Beliau merupakan pengamal pemulihan, psikiatri dan juga merupakan seorang psikologis pendidikan dari Masterpieces Miri. Dan sebagai makluman juga, beliau kini sedang meneruskan pelajarannya di peringkat PhD. So, tanpa melengahkan masa, dengan segala hormatnya dipersilakan Cik Goh Xiao Yen untuk menyampaikan ceramah beliau.
Thank you. Allow me to speak in English, for I was English educated. First of all, yang berusaha pengawal pendidikan daerah Baram, Encik Matthew Laing Ngau, yang berusaha Tuan dan Puan pengawal pendidikan daerah Miri, Bintulu dan Limbang, pengawal di Pejabat Pendidikan Daerah Zon Utara, barisan kaunselor pendidikan daerah, barisan pengetua guru besar, guru-guru anggota kumpulan pelaksana dan semua hadiran, selamat petang. And thank you very much for inviting me for this very honored and privileged to share with you about mental health. I would like the slides to be up now if possible. Yes, thank you. Right. A little bit about myself first. Okay. By the way, my topic is on management of stress, symptoms, and its prevention. So basically 3 parts. Okay, a little bit about myself to begin with, so you know who's speaking with you for you. All right. I was also a teacher, like most of you. I was a teacher for 10 years. 2 years in a full system school in Kuala Lumpur, in a private school, and 8 years at Miri International Tuition School. And I was a branch principal for the last 3.5 years of my time teaching. Some of you would have heard of Miri International Tuition School in Miri. And also after that, I went to Johor, UTM, to do educational psychology, my master's. And so I am an educational psychologist, specializing in supported education. I'll tell you more about supported education later. And after getting my master's, I went to Singapore to work for the experience in the psychiatric rehab line. Psychiatric rehabilitation is basically mental health recovery. Okay, it's basically mental health recovery. So when I was working in Singapore 10 years, I became a certified psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner. So I'm certified. So if you want to mention me to anyone, you just call me a psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner, the one with the tick over here. Okay. So I'm also a founder of a social enterprise called Masterpieces. A social enterprise is more like a business that is doing social work. That means we have beneficiaries or members in the organization who are with disability. So that's a social enterprise. And in the social enterprise, I also do psychiatric rehabilitation work, but it is specializing in supported education and peer recovery. Okay, and I am now more a PhD full-time student. more of my time is taken up as a student. It's very time consuming. I am doing it with Regent University in USA. I'm on a partial scholarship, and the PhD is in counseling and psychological studies. Okay, about mental health in Malaysia. Okay, the formatting go off. Okay, oh dear, okay. I will read it then, okay. Yeah, so I like to share about the mental health landscape in Malaysia. The most recent statistics show that in the year 2020, when the pandemic started, the suicide cases was only about 600 plus. Okay, what you can't see here is 600 plus. And last year alone, in the whole year, almost double the number of suicide cases, 1,142. This is statistics mentioned by our YB Health Minister, Khairi Jamaluddin, in the news report recently in October 21st. So this is the situation in Malaysia. Mental health cases, including suicide, have increased. I think many of you know and have kept hearing about it. Okay. Even way back in 2006, actually, in Johor, when I was studying there doing my masters, I was doing assignment, and then I gathered that there were 4 cases of suicide among teachers. Sorry, this one, in Johor, this one is among teachers. 4 cases among teachers in Johor, even back in 2006. Then in Miri, I think many of you know there was a suicide case in a primary school in Miri. I was telling a few people that I think if he know that there are others with mental health issue, that he can come together with and receive peer support, he will not feel so alone, in his struggle, and causing him in his depression to resort to suicide. My organization, Masterpieces, offer peer recovery, peer support. Okay. The way to learn how to manage stress and manage symptoms and also its prevention, the best way is to know this model, the vulnerability stress model. It's not difficult to learn, but it will explain everything, and when you understand this model, you will remember and understand easily why you manage stress and how you manage your symptoms and how to manage, how to do prevention. Okay, so the model or the theory says that for a person with vulnerability to mental illness, excuse me, so for a person with vulnerability to mental illness, under a lot of stress, and if he lacks coping skills, to coping with the stress, as well as residual symptoms, if he lack coping skill, an onset or relapse of mental illness will be triggered. Okay, so firstly, the person will need to have vulnerability in the first place, and then with under excessive stress, and then he can't cope, it will lead to mental illness. This graph will help you understand better. This shows the relationship between vulnerability on the x-axis and stress on the y-axis. Okay, the vulnerability usually is biological vulnerability. So a person with low vulnerability, that means the person have no family history of mental illness, for example, will have very low vulnerability. And so you can, if it's plotted up, you can see that he can handle a lot of stress. And there is even such a term that says that some people thrive under pressure. Yeah, so these are such people. But if the person has high vulnerability, if over here, let's say he family history, like say he's a brother or sister, or even an uncle has mental illness, then the chance is there for the person to have mental illness. Just a chance, but not all, but not definitely will get it. So the person has high vulnerability. Then and also if he already got mental illness diagnosis, even lower vulnerability. So the threshold for stress is very low. If you plot up here, it's until here only. Okay, so this is how vulnerability and stress relationship is like. Okay, so this depict the vulnerability stress model. There are three elements actually: the vulnerability, stress, and the person lack coping skills. Okay, the three elements here that will lead to mental illness. Okay, that means first of all, the person must have vulnerability. So if the person does not have vulnerability, that person is quite safe. That means, and then the person can usually cope with stress quite well. How do we know the person has vulnerability or not? Okay, this part, the vulnerability is usually biological. It is usually determined by genetic factor. That means it can be a uncle, or family member. If it is a brother or sister, the vulnerability even closer, even higher vulnerability. So like for a father or a mother, bring down to the child. I mean, if the child inherit from a father or mother, it's only 12% chance. But if it's both father and mother, it's a lot higher. Okay, it's like 30 or 50%. But then if it's only one parent, it's 12% chance. Okay, so this is a genetic factor. Then another factor that can cause vulnerability is the birth complication. It means like the baby have lack of oxygen when was being born, and or there's a distress, when during the labor. So there is a birth complication affecting the brain, but it doesn't show until the person is about 16 to 25 years old. This is the most common onset age. Actually 17 to 25. That's a common onset age. That means the child is probably like from 5. So they are more vulnerable when they come to this age. But now there are more and more cases of young teenagers, younger than 17 years old, having mental illness, and more cases. Okay. Uh, and then stress is determined by traumatic life events. Usually traumatic life events like traumatic ones, like sexual abuse or death of a loved one, uh, or marital breakup, or even breakup between boyfriend girlfriend. So these are traumatic life events, or even a loss of job that's important to the person. That is also traumatic life event. And daily hassles can also cause a lot of stress, especially if it's accumulated. If it is once in a while, it's okay, it's normal. But if it is accumulated one after another within a short time span, that is called daily hassles, and it can have an impact on the person's mental health. Okay, so these are the causes of vulnerability and stress. Okay, so these are the things that can lead to mental illness if the person cannot cope with it. So how do you prevent onset and reduce relapse? Looks like the words here are covered. Okay. To prevent onset and reduce relapse, what we need to do is we need to tackle at the three elements. Okay, the three elements that make up the vulnerability stress model and that contribute to mental illness. So to tackle it is to reduce biological vulnerability. And then for stress, you reduce the stress. And for coping skill, you increase the coping skill. So if we do this successfully, we can prevent mental illness onset or relapse. And the person will be resilient. Okay. How do we reduce biological vulnerability? We need, usually, the way to do it is medication. Medication will reduce the biological vulnerability, because the biological vulnerability is basically in the brain. There's a chemical imbalance. To put it simply, I won't go into detail on this currently in view of time. So there's a biological vulnerability because of chemical imbalance in the brain. The neurotransmitter or those, the dopamine and the serotonin, which is not at the optimal level. So the person has vulnerability. Okay. And then to reduce stress, basically we learn stress management, okay, which is what we are about today. And then to increase coping skill is to learn to manage residual symptom, or the words here can't be seen. Okay. To increase coping skill, it have two parts. That is stress management as well, and managing residual symptom. Okay. The word residual, okay, we remove the word. Okay. The word residual, okay, you see the word residual. Hold on now, my battery is running. Okay. Okay, the word residual comes from the word residue. Let's say if you have a cup of orange juice, with pulps, those type of orange juice with pulp, P-U-L-P, and then when you finish drinking it, you can see residue at the bottom of the orange juice, even though the orange is finished, but the residue is there. So the residual symptom come from the word residue. So that means even though the person can be quite well already, maybe out of hospitalization and even able to work, there is a little bit of symptoms that can come now and then, what we call residual symptom, like residue of the illness. Okay, so it can come now and then, and the person need to cope with it. Because if they don't cope well with it, they get distressed by it. It can lead to more stress, and it can lead to eventually relapse. Okay, so actually, persons with mental health issue, I know there is a minority among teachers and education officers, because it is a normal prevalence in the population. There it will be a minority, probably less than 10%, maybe even less than 5% among teachers. Because schizophrenia, for example, is 1%, and bipolar and OCD is already 3%, and major depression can be up to 10%. So there will be a minority of teachers and education officers who have mental health diagnosis, which I would like to say, I hope you are here today and you can get to learn about managing symptoms. Okay. So to learn to have better coping skill is to manage the residual symptom and to have stress management. Then if you do this well, you can prevent relapse, or you can prevent onset. Onset, that means the first time. Okay, as I've said earlier, if you do not have the vulnerability, let's say a family no history, then you are quite safe, and you surely can cope with stress well. However, we do not know who can be a carrier of the gene, because it can be like great grandmother or grandmother, and then long time ago there's no psychiatrist, so there's no report of people seeing psychiatrists. So that's why certain people can be carrier of the gene without knowing. So we do not know who, right? So the best thing is manage the stress well, so that in case you are a carrier, it will not lead to mental health onset. Okay. So now we go to management of stress, which is of interest to many, I believe. So management of stress is basically we are tackling this part, stress management. Okay. I did have a line drawn here, but it doesn't seem to appear. Okay. Yeah, I have a circle drawn here, but it doesn't appear here. Okay, so stress management, basically, we're talking about stress management here and here. Okay, that will help you prevent onset and reduce relapse. So stress management, I am approaching it from the biopsychosocial spiritual approach. This biopsychosocial and spiritual approach is actually quite new. You may have heard of biopsychosocial, but biopsychosocial spiritual is quite new. The WHO have not recognized that yet, but there are lots and lots of researchers and lots more people are talking about it. I think it will come about, one day by WHO. All right. So from the biological aspect, we want to manage stress by having adequate sleep. That is very, very important. Okay. Proper nutrition and physical exercise, at least sometimes. Yeah. Medication, if you are having the diagnosis already, then medication is very important to keep the balance, balance in the brain chemical. Okay, now psychologically, that is of the mind, on ourselves, for example. If you are interested in writing, do journal writing. Pour out when you're under stress, when you have no one to talk to. Singing can be expression, a creative expression that is releasing of stress. Music, art. Some people go into aromatherapy. Yeah, it's been mentioned, it's quite popular. And some people go into mindfulness as well. Yeah. Any relaxing and pleasurable activity will help. Okay. It must be something that you liked and you can do. Like a hobby, or even if you don't do it often, take time to relax that way. Yeah. Okay, I have to say about job fit. If you are constantly under stress at work, and you're not happy at work, then you have to consider, is it a job fit, or is it the environment you need to change? Uh, because this is very important, it contributes to your mental health. So in the long term, if under a lot of stress long term, it does affect your mental health. Okay, so it's important that you are enjoying the job, and then you will be happier and you will perform better, and it will be good for your mental health as well. Healthy self-talk. Okay, this is very important. A lot of people don't realize we often talk to ourselves in our mind. Okay, it's important. Just observe sometimes how you talk to yourself. If you're often negative and often saying I'm a failure and I'm no good, this is not healthy self-talk, and it's not good long term. So it's important to develop healthy self-talk, like, oh, I make a mistake. Oh, this didn't go well. I hope I can do better next time. What can I learn from it? That kind of reframing for yourself, the self-talk in your mind. Okay, develop and get into a habit of reframing it positively. Okay, socially, friends and family support are very important. We need to develop that. Okay, if you can't have good family support, find alternative, like quite close, some friends support that can replace the lack. But I hope most of you have good family support, because that is very critical. Then friend support is important, and have someone that you can offload to, someone trusted. Okay, sorry, my words here, I did not realize it was wrong. Offload to someone trusted, or offload to a trusted friend or a counselor. I gather that teachers and education officers have access to counselors if you want. So I encourage you not to be hindered by the stigma. Actually, a lot of people do seek counselor. Even YB Hannah Yo, she confessed to seeking counseling for family therapy between she and husband. That's why she uh, promote counseling. So you can go for counselors, and it can be kept confidential usually. By right, counselors should keep it confidential. So have someone to offload to. If you don't have a trusted friend, offload to a counselor. Okay, usually they keep it confidential except to their trainer. All right, but the trainer is supposed to keep it confidential as well. And then here I have the word mentoring and peer support. Okay. I also understand that the education system, government education system, you are given mentoring system or development system in the first 3 years. But after that, actually, I will still encourage mentoring, because personally for me, I still do have mentoring, and although not frequently, but it helps a lot, you know. So encourage you to find an unofficial mentor if you can find, and also understand that it has to be mutual. So pray about getting a mentor in your life. It need not be another teacher. It can be somebody who's not a teacher as well, and you can have more than one mentor. I encourage you to have more if you can. Yeah, because certain people are better at different aspect. Yeah. So having mentors in your life is very important. Okay, and also peer support. Have support among your peers, like peers, like about among teachers, or peers because of an interest group. You know, so have that peer support. And also, if you have a mental health diagnosis, I strongly encourage you to come together with other persons with mental health issue, because there you will feel safer to open up and share about your problems, and you need to offload that way. So mental health peer support is also very important if you do have a mental health diagnosis. Okay, spiritual, all right, support from friends or leaders from your place of worship, that's very important. Prayers and other spiritual discipline, like meditation. Yeah. Okay, on management of symptoms, here I would like to share something confidential. Actually, it's not confidential now when I am sharing this out here in the open, and this is going to be on YouTube. But I have come out in the open already just recently. So I like to share that actually, um, okay, I am sharing this for the good of those teachers, education officers who have mental health diagnosis. Is to help you, especially, and especially when we come to the topic peer support, uh, or management of symptoms. Yeah. So I would like to share that actually I have a mental health background. Yeah, I have a mental health diagnosis, but I have been doing very well. I have had 12 years and another 12 years without relapse, long stretch of no relapse. And I've been doing so well that, like it was mentioned earlier, that I'm doing my PhD currently in mental health area. And when I was when I was working in Singapore, I went to Holland in the year 2015, and I won the Best Poster Award at a conference, which is the first European supported education conference in Holland. So this is a picture of it. And it was featured in the Borneo Post in the year 2016. You can take a picture of this and read it if you would like. So this is where I specialize in supported education. So even though I have a mental health diagnosis, I have been able to recover so well that I am able to contribute in the area that is my strength. That means in the areas that I have worked in supported education, because I did masters with mental health diagnosis, and then I was a teacher, so I can provide supported education. Supported education is basically the helping of persons with mental health issue at higher education, and helping them to be able to go back for higher education or be able to succeed in it if they are already in it. Okay, so that is supported education. And you know, even with mental health diagnosis, we can function and we can contribute. Okay, and at the another conference, that is the World Conference on Supported Education, I am an invited keynote speaker. So there you are. I am contributing actively in supported education. And this conference is postponed because of the pandemic. All right. So yeah, again, persons with mental health issue can function and contribute in the education sector when provided the support, as well as when they can manage the residual symptoms well. So I would like to share on managing the residual symptoms and how to reduce relapse based on my own personal experience, as well as what I read in literature and my observation of clients with mental health issue, having worked 10 years in this line in Singapore. Okay, so basically it is on this part, managing the residual symptoms, or it can also be managing the early warning signs, okay, which I'll explain. All right, so there's a difference between residual symptoms and relapse. Residual symptoms and relapse. In fact, there is another stage here. There's the early warning signs. So this will lead to early warning signs. Residual symptom will lead to early warning signs if residual symptom is not managed well. And then if early warning signs is not taken in time and well, it will lead to a relapse. And often the relapse is what we call an episode. It can be quite bad. It can come out in the open. People can see it, or it can lead to hospitalization in some cases. So this is what we don't want, right? We don't want persons with mental health issue to go into a relapse, because the person will also be out of work, and it can be more than 1 week. The relapse. So managing the residual symptoms. Okay, let me explain what's the difference. When the person is having residual symptom, it is infrequent. That means it's not frequent. For example, if it is insomnia, one example of residual symptom, inability to sleep, it's only once in a while. That kind of thing can happen. So this is just called residual symptom. Now and then it happens, but it doesn't affect so much. The person can cope and then can just still go on. Okay, so insomnia, once in a while it happens. One night didn't sleep, the next day can still manage work. All right. Then, however, for early warning sign, the frequency and the severity increase. For example, insomnia, for little insomnia, maybe like consecutively for 2 days. That means having insomnia consecutively for 2 days. Then it's quite bad. So it is an early warning sign. that there is a impending relapse coming. So we need to tackle it and sort of de-escalate, bring it down before it lead to a relapse. Okay, so it is early warning sign. And other early warning signs are like, for example, concentration problem. For one whole day, cannot concentrate. Okay, when the concentration problem is only once in a while, it happens, like one evening or something, because of some emotional issue, that is normal. That is residual symptom. I mean, normal for persons with mental health issue. That is called a residual symptom. But if it is one whole long day, that is already early warning sign. If it is like 2 days consecutively or more, then it can lead to a relapse, or it can eventually become a relapse, and other symptoms will come. It will be more severe. Besides not just having insomnia and concentration problem, it can be other symptoms like mania or psychosis, or deep depression, or even suicide thoughts. Okay, when a person has suicide thoughts, is very serious already. Then the person need usually to see a doctor. If the person don't wish to see a doctor, then sometimes there is a need to enforce it. The family member need to act. If the person is having serious suicidal thought, not just like once a while, but serious suicidal thought, the family need to act. Otherwise, the person sometimes can actually take action. All right, so there's a danger. So when having suicidal thoughts that especially consecutively for some time, it is a relapse. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to tackle it while it's just residual symptom. Every time it comes, we tackle it, we cope with it, but we can cope with it and it can go over. Okay, it can just go over after one night or the most one day. Yeah. So it can go over, then it's okay and you can still work. All right. But then if it is worse, if it get worse, then it become early warning signs. Then there is still chance to tackle it. You still need to manage the symptoms. If you can bring it down, then you're fine, you're safe. It doesn't lead to relapse. But if you don't tackle it in time and tackle it well, or even admit to it that you're having early warning signs. If you don't admit to it, then you can't tackle it, right? So if you don't even admit to it, then it will eventually lead to relapse, and which is worse. Okay, residual symptoms. These are example of residual symptoms which can happen now and then, and it's not so serious, like sleep pattern change, like sleeping more or cannot sleep. Okay, concentration problem, depression, feeling depressed. Okay, appetite change, eating more or no appetite, anxiety, being anxious over things that usually should not, that one usually is not anxious about, social withdrawal, not wanting to meet people, avoiding people, loss of interest or loss of initiative, and loss of initiative making the person look like the person is lazy, but actually it's a loss of initiative. Mild or infrequent psychosis, like hallucination or delusion, like seeing things, or having false belief. That means thinking that people are against you, after you, or talking a lot about you. I mean, like sometimes colleagues also do talk about each other, yeah. So if you pick up a little bit here and there, you need to test it out to see whether it's true or not, or to find out whether it's true or not. But if it is a lot, if you feel that it's a lot, then it could be a delusion. And if it is getting worse and worse, you better talk to a counselor or a mental health professional and get the help of medication. It can bring it down before it get worse, and then you feel the whole school is against you. Yeah, so that is delusion. So that if it's like you feel the whole school is against you, that is already early warning sign. Yeah. So that's why you need to do something about it when it is early warning sign. Otherwise, it will lead to relapse. And we don't want teachers to act out in front of students, right? Yeah, so we want teachers, if you have mental health issue, to be able to handle yourself, to be able to cope with it, and to be in charge, so that you can bring it up. What you need before it get worse, so that it will not cause problems to anybody else, or very obvious, conspicuous result, in front of students, or mistakes made, or damage made, or hurt made. Yeah, so we don't want that to happen. And it is possible to be in charge and manage your symptom, and that it will not cause problem, and therefore be able to function as a teacher or education officer. Just as I worked 10 years in education line and was also branch principal for 3.5 years, even despite my mental health issue. Yeah, so it's possible. So remember that residual symptoms can be coped with, and it can go past. It can go over when you cope with it. So you don't get too stressed out over it, so that it doesn't get to become early warning sign. Okay. All right, this is what I want to share most of all on managing early warning signs, how you manage early warning signs so that it doesn't lead to a relapse. And earlier I've said early warning signs are, remember this part, early warning signs here is more worse than residual symptom. That means it's getting more frequent. Your symptoms are getting more frequent and more severe. So there are early warning signs. Okay. So what you want to do to prevent relapse is take leave. If you can take medical leave, best. If your school, let's say your principal know about it, and you can take leave, medical leave in view of psychiatric and medical leave, that'll be wonderful. But then if your school doesn't know about it, you didn't disclose to anyone in the school, and then you want to continue keeping it quiet, then you may have to resort to taking annual leave. But some doctors are willing to give annual leave without mentioning psychiatry. So you have to find that kind of doctor or GP without mentioning psychiatry. So if you can do that, take leave, 1 day, 2 day, it helps just to take a break and do what is necessary. So during that time, quickly get an early appointment to see the psychiatrist or the doctor in the psychiatry clinic. And usually what the psychiatrist will do is to increase your medication to help you tide through that period. But it is only temporarily. So don't worry. Yeah, it can come down again when you are better. Okay. So next thing is catch up on your sleep. Most likely you have not been able to sleep for 2 days or so. So catch up on your sleep and manage the stress in your life. Have stress management strategies, and relax. Find that time to relax and sleep, and also resolve the thing that trigger the stress. Sometimes it can be a problem that can be solved. It can be talked through, or someone to approach. Some can be resolved, but some cannot be resolved. Let's say it's the death of a loved one, then you can't resolve it. Then you have to cope with it. That's when stress management is important, and talk to someone, offload it to someone that you can trust. That will help a lot. Okay, so these are the important and the key things that need to be done to prevent early warning signs from becoming relapse. Okay, so prevention. Basically, prevention, I have talked about it. I have talked about it already. That is basically this whole framework, the vulnerability stress model, because it prevents onset of illness as well. That is the prevention part as well. So you remember, the vulnerability and the stress. That's why it's called vulnerability stress model. So if to prevent mental illness, if you don't have vulnerability, or if you have vulnerability, it is important to manage the stress in your life. Okay, stress management. And if you have if you have diagnosis, also very important to manage the residual symptoms to have better coping skill so that it doesn't lead to relapse. Yeah. So for prevention of onset, remember, it is to manage the stress in your life well. Okay. If you are not, if you feel you don't know enough about stress management, you can tell me, and or read up on it on the internet as well, because stress management topic is very common. Okay. Right. So this is one way to prevent onset. Yeah. Manage the stress well in your life. Other advice on prevention. Okay. We can't avoid traumatic life events that can happen in our life, or the genetic factor in the family. So what we need to do is to manage the stress well. Okay. And also, don't be too hard on yourself. A lot of persons with mental health issue can be very hard on themselves. So don't be too hard on yourself. Learn to relax and accept like 80% of product performance, and not strive for 100%. Especially if you have perfectionism, that's quite a risk. So reduce the perfectionism. Accept, like I say, 80% instead of 100%. No need to strive for 100%. 80%, be happy with it. If you can a bit more, yeah, go for it. But don't strive for perfection. Okay. And don't bottle up or suppress your emotion. Okay. From my own experience, how I eventually have first onset, yes, I did bottle up, and I didn't tell people. Mine was through a breakup with a boyfriend. I couldn't handle it very well, and I didn't tell people for a long time. Yeah. And find outlets. Okay. Be open to counseling or spiritual support. Okay. And build social support. It's important to have social support in your life, family, friends. Like I have said earlier, mental health peers, those who have diagnosis. I would like to recommend you to find mental health peers. And my organization, Masterpieces, we have peer support group that you can join. Okay. Most aspect of it is free. So you can join us for the support. Okay. Encourage you to have mentor, unofficial mentor. Okay. And also, don't fear if you have no mental health diagnosis by now, and most of you are like about 40 years old. Don't worry, because you are past the stage of 25 years old, less chance that you'll get mental health onset. But it's not that it will never happen. So still manage the stress in your life. And also another thing is that usually first onset at a late stage, that means when the person is older, the person is more rational, the recovery is faster and the prognosis is better. That means the outcome or recovery is better. Unless the person is much older, like retirement age, the risk of dementia and Alzheimer can be there. So that's different. Okay. I want to mention here that if you are retirement age and fear the risk of dementia or Alzheimer, the way to cope with it is don't go into depression. Because I notice almost all the people who have Alzheimer that I inquired about, they all had depression before they had dementia or Alzheimer. So don't get dragged into depression. And if you find that you are getting depressed, get out of it as fast as possible. Seek help. Seek mental health professionals' help. That's one advice, a strong advice. Okay, besides spiritual, if you believe in spiritual. Okay, the summary is, the key to remember is the vulnerability stress model. If you can remember this, the vulnerability and the stress, and therefore the third element, because of the stress, lacking coping skill, and then it will lead to mental illness. If you can remember this, you can remember easily what to do to prevent mental health issue, and to also to have stress management. Okay, so the idea is to reduce stress and then increase the coping skill. In increasing coping skill, you are actually reducing stress. So remember this, the vulnerability stress model, and you will not forget, and you will know what to do. Okay? So finally, I would like to end with, how else can I help you? As I mentioned, I have a mental health peer support group. You can join, contact me. Contact me, and then you can join us. It's either we are on WhatsApp, and we also have a Facebook. And if you are in Miri, we can meet together as well. Okay. And supported education services is something that I am still doing a bit of it, even though I'm doing my PhD currently. My study actually is very heavy, so I'm not able to provide much one-to-one consultation. So I will do it if it is very necessary, but I'm trying to reduce that because of my PhD study, which is very heavy, and I can't give that commitment. So but supported education services, I'm still carrying it out, but on a very small scale. Okay, if you have anyone you know who are going for post-secondary education or higher education, or are already in higher education, who need mental health support to succeed in their study, you can contact me. Okay. Then there's a resilience program by an organization called Caring for Life in Singapore. They have offered for me to invite people in Sarawak to join the program for free. It is a resilience program. I think at least 4 to 6 sessions, and then it is basically building your resilience. It is open to both persons with mental health issue as well as those people without mental health issue, to build resilience and also to prevent suicide. Then there's the National Mental Health Crisis Line called Heal Line, which was just launched in October, or just recently, 21st October. This is a telephone number to call. Okay, so if you have mental health issue, you can also call this helpline for free. And then I want to say that I will be able to do more 3 years from now, after my PhD studies over. So that time I will open a psychiatric rehab center for peers and for supported education. So I will be able to do more in 3 years' time. So I'm sorry, I may seem a bit hesitant to do a lot for you, but I hope if you need my help, you can still try me, and it will be kept confidential. And then 3 years later, I can do more. Okay, thank you very much. That is all I have. Thank you.
Terima kasih atas perkongsian ilmu yang sangat berguna sebentar tadi. So, apa yang saya pelajari pada hari ini melalui ceramah yang disampaikan oleh Cik Goh Xiao Yan, bahawa dia telah mengetengahkan beberapa langkah untuk kita mencegah daripada onset, satu, dan yang kedua ialah bagaimana kita dapat mengurus relapse, maksudnya ialah pengulangan kepada stres itu. right? So dan beliau juga telah memberikan kita langkah, okay, bagaimana menghadapi, bagaimana kita harus mencegah, okay, stres ini berlaku, iaitu dengan mengurus tekanan ataupun kita harus bijak dalam mengurus stres yang kita hadapi dalam kehidupan seharian kita. Okay, dengan dia juga telah memberikan kita approach, pendekatan biopsychosocial spiritual approach yang telah beliau gunakan di dalam praktis yang dia lakukan. Okay, so kita sebagai seorang pejabat awam, okay, perlu bijak dalam menguruskan stres dan tekanan yang kita hadapi dalam kehidupan seharian kita. Ya, so kegagalan dalam mengurus kesihatan mental ini boleh memudaratkan kesejahteraan diri. So oleh itu sama-sama kita menjaga diri kita, okay, dalam mengurus stres dan tekanan hidup. Ya, semoga kita semua mendapat manfaat daripada perkongsian penceramah kita pada hari ini. So seterusnya, ruangan kita buka kepada soalan dari para penonton melalui ruangan chat di YouTube kepada penceramah kita. Okay, jika ada, so soalan boleh kita kemukakan. Ada apa-apa soalan? Soalan, ada soalan di sini. Okay, adakah penyakit mental boleh berjangkit?
Berjangkit is inherited, is it? My Malay quite poor. Sorry. Inherited, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Mental health issue is known to be hereditary. It is. That's why I was saying earlier, if a father, a parent has it, then the children, the chance is 12%. That means out of 4 children, maybe only 1 child have it, not necessarily all 4. Okay, but if it is, let's say, a cousin or uncle, then the chance is actually less because it's further spread. But I wish to say that more recently there have been more recent research findings that is called epigenetic, okay, that says that even though it's genetic, if let's say the family and the person have very good support and what they call that, life experiences, life experiences, support, and also the person adopt good habits and all that, it's possible to prevent mental illness. That means the gene may not, it can prevent the gene from acting out, something like that. I am not very clear on how it works, the epigenetic, but I have been hearing even the doctors in the Miri psychiatric clinic, they also believe in epigenetic. For example, like Dr. Bawe, I can name her. Yeah, she did talk about epigenetic as well. Yeah, so that means it's possible to prevent, even though it's genetically inherited in the family.
Okay, maksudnya dari biological dia boleh dijangkiti tetapi boleh dicegah. Okay, dengan support group. Yeah.
Support group, behavioral intervention and basically like life circumstances that is not too stressful for the person overall, and the person can cope, for example, having good social support and spiritual support, all that kind of thing can prevent the gene from acting out lah, something like that.
Oh, okay. Alright, thank you.
Next question.
Okay, soalan yang kedua. Apakah perbezaan antara penyakit bipolar dengan kemurungan, stres dan penyakit jiwa? What is the differences between bipolar, depression, and
Stress.
is it mental health?
Stress, penyakit jiwa. Okay, I think I know what
Penyakit
you're
jiwa.
saying. Yeah. Okay. Penyakit jiwa is a general term, mental illness. Okay. It include basically all illnesses that are diagnosed by the DSM. There is a book called DSM, which the psychiatrists need to learn to diagnose. I'm aware of this because I also got to learn the book in one of my subjects during masters. But I'm not allowed to diagnose. I'm only allowed to suspect. So penyakit jiwa, that is mental illness, by the book Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, that DSM, that book. Okay, so all these penyakit is called mental illness, and they include the common ones like bipolar, kemurungan, schizophrenia, OCD. All these are the common ones under penyakit jiwa. Okay, so that's where the difference is. Bipolar is one type, kemurungan is one type, schizophrenia is one type, then another one, anxiety disorder, which include OCD, also another type. All right, so all these are different type. Then stress happens to all the mental illness. It also happened to us. I mean, as in people who are normal as well, it happened to everybody. Actually, a little bit of stress is helpful because it can motivate us to do things, got deadlines and all this. A little bit positive stress is good, but it cannot be too much and overwhelming. If it's too much and overwhelming, then it becomes no good. Okay, so what we don't want is stress that's overwhelming and is too much, or is sort of suppressed for a long time, yeah, and accumulated without an outlet. Yeah.
Okay. So, terima kasih. Ya, harap kita faham penyakit jiwa is the big, itu payung utama dia. Okay, so then yang lain itu kemurungan bipolar itu adalah penyakit.
Jenis-jenis.
Ya. Alright, ada lagi? Okay. What are the healthier ways to reduce stress?
Yeah. You saw my. Can we go to my slide again? Is it possible to show my slide again? Okay. Right. Okay, I did mention here the stress management. There is a healthy way to reduce stress. Okay. I'm glad you pick up the fact that we are to reduce stress. Okay. Oops. Yeah, here. The healthy ways to reduce stress. I've only mentioned the healthy ways. I don't advocate the unhealthy ways. Although in the US, they think that some states do accept like drug abuse as not healthy, but as a person's choice, in handling stress. But that's something that I personally don't agree with. Yeah. So these are all the healthy ways to reduce stress. You can take a picture of this. Here below here is mentoring and peer support. Apparently it's covered because of the formatting. Okay. These are some healthy ways. Is there any more questions after this, seeing these healthy ways to reduce stress? Any other thing that you might like to ask, whether it is a good stress management technique?
Kan yang kita yang telah bertanya soalan tadi, so itu antara contoh bagaimana kita menangani stres. Okay, so Crystal Tiong, okay, so dia bertanya, is there any method we can use to differentiate whether the person is under mental health problem or spiritual distraction?
Yes. Actually, the book called Demonization of Mental Illness by two Singaporean called Dr. Leslie Lim and Pastor Douglas Cole. They wrote a book, and inside they do differentiate the difference between when a person need deliverance and when a person don't need deliverance. That means don't need deliverance is mostly mental health issue. Okay, so they do differentiate. All right, if you like to get that book, it's quite a thin book. It's called Demonization of Mental Illness, Leslie Lim and Douglas Cole. Okay, so for me, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on this part, but the way I can tell is that also from what I've heard from others, including Dr. Leslie Cole, is that with mental health problem, for me, I would judge it by it meet the diagnosis criteria. And spiritual distraction, they can be talking a lot on the spiritual side, and they can be talking on when they're talking on the spiritual side, it can also be what we call religious delusion. There is such a thing called religious delusion, suffered by those with delusional disorder or bipolar or even schizophrenia. So there can be a mix up. So because that one is just a religious delusion, they can be talking a lot of spiritual thing. But one of the way to know whether it's a spiritual distraction is to see the person background. Have he or she got involved with occults or anything spiritually not advised, especially the occults or even this is, I don't know whether the Malay community will accept this, but to me, like the Bomo or that, the mediums, for Chinese is the Chinese mediums, for the Malay community is the Malay Bomos. All these tend to be associated with not on the right track. Yeah. So those who are involved with all these things, the accounts and all that, or go into trance or get committed to some gods, all that can have a bondage in spiritually. So that can be explained that it could be a spiritual distraction. But one of the things you can do is you can see both psychiatrist and your spiritual leader, and the spiritual leader can pray also. Hopefully these psychiatrists and spiritual leader will not be in conflict with each other. Some can work together, so you can see both. If the person is not well, see both. Yeah, so spiritual distraction usually can get better after spiritual help. Yeah.
Okay, Crystal Tiong, I hope dia dapat membantu, jawapan daripada Ms. Go dapat membantu untuk kita lihat differentiation between whether the person is under mental health problem or spiritual distraction. Okay, so ada soalan lagi? Is there a possibility for a person with mental health problem to fully recover 100%?
Okay, that's a good question. Yes. Usually, and literature says that the person cannot go back to 100% like before. Okay, usually. But there have been cases, and I think I'm one of them, who actually seem to get a little bit better, maybe more driven in life, more motivated in life, have more direction and more purpose in life. And I continue to do well eventually. Maybe not the first few years, because I was still unstable. But then after that, when I become stable, I did my masters, and I now am doing my PhD. And I work-wise, I was able to progress to branch level. Branch principal level, and being executive. But maybe I am a bit slower than my peers, because the first few years I struggled with mental illness and I was unstable. So I lost those few years, I must say. Okay, so am I as good as I can be like my peers last time? I lost to some, but I am better than some. If we want to be quantify it, yeah. So have I fully recovered? I think I can say I have fully recovered, maybe 99% or 98%, because there's this 1%, 2% that I have this side effect that comes now and then. Mine is not so much residual symptom anymore, but it's a side effect that can come and affect me once occasionally, but I need to cope with it. But I can still manage work and study. Yeah. So to fully recover, to some people who seem to get better than before or as good as before, is the literature explain that it is because the person is more mature. It's a maturity of thought. That's what they explain. The person is more mature, maybe, but cognitively, have I got worse? I don't think so now. Now I don't think so. Last time I thought so. Initially, I thought that I lost my ability, but with mental illness, the cognition doesn't affect so badly compared to mental retardation. That one is born like that, and then there was some mental illness. Maybe some people some people are affected. I noticed that, and some people don't recover despite their bachelor degree, they don't recover well. So that's why it's important they must have the right resources and right help, and don't left idle for too long. That means you don't see that, they're sick, don't do anything lah, don't do anything. No, that's not good for them. If you leave them idle, they're always in their mind, and then their brain are not exercised according to their pace, they can get worse. That's what I noticed among some clients when I was working in Singapore. There were some clients a bachelor degree, but their capability is not there anymore. So I did notice a few, but they are maybe the bottom 1/3 lah. Bottom 1/3. Yeah. The other 2/3 recover. 1/3 maybe have relapsed sometimes now and then. Then another 1/3 functioning very well. Very few, hardly any relapse or no relapse. Okay. Yeah.
So yang pasti there's a hope untuk recover. Yeah. Right. Soalan lagi? No more? Okay, so question daripada saya, soalan, what about panic attack? Can we say it is early sign untuk onset kepada mental illness?
Yes, panic attack can happen when the person have gone through some traumatic experience, like some sickness. They can have a bit of panic that comes. I personally experienced panic once because I thought that I have a problem with my abdomen because there were pain, and I experienced a bit of panic to the extent my heart palpitated, and then something that kind of heart palpitated and feeling warm or something. So I roughly can imagine how panic attack is like. So, but it's only once I experienced. So I'm not considered having panic attack or panic disorder because it's only once. So if your panic happens quite frequently and often, better see a doctor, because if it affects your occupational function or social function, then it's better to see a doctor lah.
Oh, yeah, thank
So,
you.
yeah.
So kita lihat kepada frekuensi dia, how the panic attack datang lah, menyerang seseorang itu. Ya, yeah. So that's it. Okay, so setakat ini ada lagi soalan? Tidak ada? Alright. Okay, so hadirin sekalian. Okay, so setakat ini tidak ada soalan lagi dan link kehadiran telah dikongsikan dan mohon untuk diisi dengan lengkap. Okay, bagi memudahkan pihak kami mendaftar kehadiran tuan-puan dalam SPL KPM. Dan sebelum mengakhiri ceramah kita pada petang ini, majlis sekali lagi ingin merakamkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan dan terima kasih kepada penceramah kita, Cik Goh Xiao Yen, yang sudi meluangkan masa untuk perkongsian ilmu dan kepakaran beliau bersama kita. So sekiranya kita berhadapan dengan tekanan, so jangan hesitate, jangan ragu-ragu, jangan tunggu lama-lama. So seperti yang telah dikongsikan bersama dengan kita tadi, kita boleh hubungi dia pada bila masa. So terima kasih juga kepada semua hadirin hadirat yang setia bersama dari awal sehingga akhir ceramah kita pada petang ini. Segala yang baik datang daripada Yang Maha Esa dan manakala yang kurang baik adalah atas kekilafan diri kami sendiri. So diharap kita akan berjumpa lagi pada masa yang akan datang.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the questions and the interest shown.